The notorious Carson brothers think they've found an easy target in this sleepy mountain town's aging lawman. What they don't know is that Sheriff Nathan Ghostwalker Cooper earned his nickname hunting the deadliest outlaws across 7 territories, and some skills never fade. Before we continue this tale of justice and redemption, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories of outlaws meeting their match, make sure to subscribe. We've got something special coming tomorrow that you won't want to miss. The last rays of autumn sunlight paint the mountains gold as darkness creeps into Silver Gap, a town nestled deep in Colorado's unforgiving wilderness. Wind whistles through the pine trees, carrying winter's first chill and the promise of snow. From his vantage point above Main Street, Tom Carson studies the sheriff's office through brass binoculars, his scarred face twisted in a calculating smile. The infamous outlaw's breath creates small clouds in the cooling air as he watches the aged lawman through the window. Below him, his younger brothers Jack and Will check their weapons with practiced ease, the metallic clicks echoing off the rocks like rattlesnake warnings. Jack, the middle brother, carries a Spanish revolver with custom ivory grips, stolen from a Mexican general, or so he claims. Will, barely 20, inherited their father's shotgun along with his quick temper. "Old man's been sheriff here 15 years, Tom mutters, lowering the binoculars. His voice carries the gravel of too many nights sleeping rough and too much cheap whiskey. Probably hasn't drawn his gun in a decade. Town's got more silver than sense keeping a relic like that as law. The rope scar on his neck stands out white against his weathered skin, a souvenir from a hanging he hadn't quite attended. Will runs a cloth over his shotgun's barrel, nervous energy making his movements jerky. Heard talk in Deadwood about him. They say he took down the Blackwood gang single-handed back in '85. All 6 of them, including Mad Dog Mason himself. His words earn him a sharp cuff from Tom that nearly knocks his hat off. That's ancient history, boy. Man's pushing 60 if he's a day. Time makes fools of us all. Tom spits a stream of tobacco juice that freezes before it hits the ground. Besides, that silver shipment ain't gonna walk itself out of the bank vault. Come morning, they'll be loading up enough precious metal to set us up proper. No more scraping by on penny-ante jobs. Jack chambers around in his revolver, the sound unnaturally loud in the mountain air. What about his deputy? Young thing, Chinese girl. Seen her practicing her draw behind the jail. She's quick. Leave her to me, Tom growls, touching the knife at his belt. Wouldn't be the first badge I've dealt with quiet like. No noise, no fuss, just another tragedy in a dangerous territory. In his office, Sheriff Nathan Cooper sits at his desk, gray hair catching the lamplight as he writes in the town ledger. His movements are deliberate, measured, like a man who's learned the value of patience. To casual observers, he's just another small-town lawman, his badge dulled by years of faithful service. They don't notice how his eyes constantly scan the street through the window, or how his gun belt, though worn, sits at precisely the right angle for a quick draw. The leather holster at his hip shows careful maintenance despite its age, like its owner aging gracefully but still dangerous. The Colt Peacemaker it cradles has no fancy engraving or ivory grips, just honest bluing worn smooth by years of use. Each scratch and mark on its surface tells a story, though Nathan keeps those tales locked away as tight as the silver in the bank vault. Deputy Sarah Chen enters with a fresh pot of coffee, her boots making floorboards creak that never betray anyone else's step. At barely 25, she's new to her badge but carries herself with the confidence of someone determined to earn it. Her father's people helped build the railroad through these mountains, but she's carving her own legacy with a badge and gun. Quiet night, Sheriff. She pours him a cup, steam rising like morning fog. Her own cup sits cooling on her desk, next to a well-thumbed copy of territorial law. Too quiet, maybe. Even the saloons settled down early. Nathan accepts the coffee with a slight nod, his weathered face revealing nothing. But those who know where to look might notice how his right hand stays near his holster, how the muscles in his neck tense like a mountain cat sensing prey. 15 years as Silver Gap's sheriff haven't dulled the instincts that kept him alive during darker days. Sometimes quiet is just the wind holding its breath, Sarah. He sips the coffee, eyes never leaving the window. You remember what I taught you about Tuesday nights? Sarah checks her own weapon. a habit she's picked up from him over the past 6 months. Bank brings in the silver shipment early Wednesday mornings. Always good to be extra careful Tuesday nights. She smiles, proud of remembering the lesson. Though we haven't had a trouble since you ran off the Jenkins boys last spring. What she doesn't know, what no one in Silver Gap knows, is why Nathan insists on working every Tuesday night himself. They haven't heard the whispers that still circulate in certain saloons across 7 territories about a man they called Ghost Walker, a hunter who could track outlaws across impossible terrain, who could read sign others missed, who brought in the worst of the West dead or alive, a man who vanished from the bounty hunting trade 15 years ago, as if swallowed by the very mountains he knew so well. The wind picks up, rattling the window panes like forgotten promises. Nathan's coffee has grown cold, untouched. In the growing dark, 3 shadows begin to move, and an old hunter's instincts stir to life once more. Something about the night's stillness nags at Nathan's instincts like an old wound aching before a storm. He rises from his desk, movements fluid despite his age, and walks to the gun rack where the town's Winchester repeater hangs loaded and ready. Sarah watches him with quiet curiosity, having learned over months that her mentor's hunches usually mean trouble. "Think I'll walk the back alleys," Nathan says, his voice carrying the calm of mountain lakes before a blizzard. "Best check the bank's rear entrance. Sometimes trouble comes calling through the service door." He lifts the rifle with practiced ease, the weapon fitting his grip like an old friend. "Want company?" Sarah's hand drops instinctively to her revolver, but Nathan shakes his head. "Need you here. Anyone comes in asking about me? Tell them I'm making rounds." He pauses at the door, shadows playing across his weathered features. "And Sarah? If you hear shooting, don't come running. Send word to Judge McCullough instead. He'll understand." Outside, the mountain air carries the crisp bite of approaching winter. Nathan moves through familiar streets with the silence of a hunting cat, each step placed with deliberate care. To anyone watching, he's just an aging lawman making his rounds. But beneath that facade, older instincts are awakening, instincts honed across 15 years of tracking the West's deadliest men through unforgiving wilderness. From their hidden perch, the Carson brothers watch his progress. "There he goes," Tom whispers, "right on schedule." He gestures to Will. "Follow him, but keep your distance. Man's gotta have some trail sense left, even if he has gone soft." Will nods and slips away, young enough to still move quietly despite his size. Jack chambers another round, the sound sharp in the quiet night. "Shouldn't we just rush him? 3-on-1, even if he is what they say he was." Tom's backhand catches his brother across the mouth, drawing blood. "That kind of thinking is why you're still small time," he snarls. "You don't rush a legend without knowing if he's still got teeth. We do this smart, like I planned." Will follows him, drives him toward the livery. "You take the high ground behind the cooper's shop. I'll come up through the alley. Triangle him in, nice and neat." In the shadows behind them, Nathan Cooper smiles grimly. 15 years of peace haven't dulled his hearing, and the brothers' whispers carry clear in the mountain air. He'd spotted their tracks hours ago. 3 men, one with a slight limp, another favoring his right leg. The same tracks he'd studied 2 years back when the Carson gang hit 3 banks in Montana territory. Moving deeper into the darkness between buildings, Nathan lets his mind drift back to another night. 15 years past. He'd been tracking the Blackwood gang through country much like this, following sign most men would miss. 6 killers who'd left a trail of burning banks and dead lawmen across 3 territories. He'd caught them in a box canyon, and when the gun smoke cleared, only he walked out. The bounty had been enough to buy a badge in a quiet mountain town, but the memories never quite fade. The livery looms ahead, its bulk dark against the star-filled sky. Nathan slips inside, the familiar scent of hay and horse leather filling his nostrils. He positions himself carefully, using years of knowledge about sight lines and shadow play. The Winchester rests ready in his hands, but it's not his only insurance. The peacemaker at his hip has never failed him yet. Will Carson edges toward the livery's front entrance, shotgun held nervously in young hands. The boy's trying to be quiet, but to Nathan's practiced ears, he might as well be beating a drum. 15 years ago, Nathan would have taken him down first. Young ones spook easily, tend to shoot wild. But something's changed in 15 years of wearing a star, of watching young deputies grow into their badges, of giving second chances. Kind of young to throw your life away, son. Nathan's voice carries softly through the darkness. Will startles, shotgun jerking toward the sound. Carson gangs a hard road, harder still since Tom started killing witnesses. Shut up, Will's voice cracks, betraying his youth. You don't know nothing about us? No more than you think. Nathan keeps his voice steady, grandfatherly almost. Know your pa was a good man before the fever took him. Know your ma tried to keep the ranch going. Know Tom's been leading you boys down a dark trail since then. A pause, heavy with possibility. Also know there's still time to choose different. The silence stretches, broken only by Will's ragged breathing. Then Tom Carson's voice cuts through the night like a knife. Shoot him, you worthless pup, man's just trying to get in your head. The livery erupts in gunfire. Will's shotgun roars, peppering the spot where Nathan's voice came from. Jack's revolver adds its deeper voice from the high ground, while Tom fires methodically from the alley. Smoke fills the building, thick enough to choke on. When it clears, Nathan Cooper is gone. The Winchester lies on the ground where he stood, apparently dropped in panic. Will approaches it cautiously, shotgun still smoking. Told you he was soft, Tom laughs, stepping into the livery. All that legend, and he runs at the first sign of trouble, probably halfway to the mountains by now. He kicks the Winchester contemptuously. Get back to your positions. Come morning, we'll have ourselves a bank to rob and no law to stop us. None of them notice the shadow that slips away through the back door, moving with the silence of a ghost. None of them see the smile that crosses Nathan Cooper's weathered face as he touches the peacemaker at his hip. None of them understand that some legends don't fade, they just learn patience. Back in the sheriff's office, Sarah Chen paces nervously. The gunfire had been clear, even at this distance, but she honors her mentor's request and stays put. The door opens and she spins, gun half drawn, but it's only Judge McCullough, his face creased with worry. Heard the shooting, the judge says without preamble. Reckon it started then? Sarah blinks in surprise. Sir? You know what's happening? The old judge's eyes are distant, remembering. Let's just say I knew Nathan Cooper when he wore a different kind of star, one he earned bringing in the worst of the worst. He settles into a chair, movement stiff with age. Might want to brew some coffee, deputy. Something tells me this is going to be a long night. Judge McCullough's weathered hands wrap around his coffee cup as he settles deeper into his chair, his eyes fixed on some distant point beyond the sheriff's office walls. Sarah Chen watches him, questions burning in her throat like whiskey. Outside, Silver Gap holds its breath, waiting for whatever comes next. 15 years ago, the judge begins, his voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. I was riding circuit through Montana territory. Nasty business back then. Outlaws treating every small town like their personal hunting ground. But there was one man they feared more than any badge or hangman's noose. Sarah leans forward, forgetting protocol in her eagerness to understand. Ghostwalker, the bounty hunter. More than just a bounty hunter, deputy. He was justice incarnate in places law couldn't reach. McCullough's eyes focus on her sharply. Ever wonder why a man with Nathan's skills chose to badge up in a small silver town? Why he never talks about his past? Before Sarah can answer, the office door swings open. Marcus Hawthorne, the bank manager, hurries in, his usual pristine appearance disheveled by concern. Behind him comes Samuel Chen, Sarah's father, who owns the town's largest mercantile. More townspeople follow, the saloon keeper, the blacksmith, faces etched with worry in the lamplight. Heard shooting up by the livery, Hawthorne says, straightening his vest nervously. Tomorrow's silver shipment. If something happens to it, the mining company might pull out entirely. His fingers drum an anxious rhythm on his watch chain. Where's the sheriff? Doing his job, McCullough answers firmly. Best you all stay here where it's safe. Samuel Chen steps forward, his accent thickening with concern. My daughter should not be here. Not with Carson gang in town. His eyes meet Sarah's pleadingly. Come home, Baobei. Let the sheriff handle this. Sarah stands straighter, her badge catching the lamplight. I took an oath, boss, same as Sheriff Cooper. Cooper's a fool, Hawthorne interrupts. Should have wired for territorial marshals days ago when we first spotted strangers watching the town. Now we're sitting ducks with millions in silver arriving at dawn. The judge's laugh is sharp as a rifle crack. Nathan Cooper's many things, Mr. Hawthorne, but a fool ain't one of them. Tell me, any of you ever wonder why no major gang has successfully robbed Silver Gap in 15 years? Why even the Blackwood gang stayed clear? The townspeople exchange glances. It's true. While neighboring settlements suffered, Silver Gap remained remarkably peaceful under Cooper's watch. Even would-be troublemakers seemed to fade away after brief conversations with the aging lawman. Meanwhile, in the shadows behind the livery, Nathan Cooper moves like a ghost through his own town. The Carson brothers' confidence after the shooting works in his favor. They believe they've spooked an old man into running. It's a mistake others have made before, usually as their last mistake. He pauses behind the Cooper's shop, listening. Jack Carson's boots scrape on the roof above, the young outlaw still maintaining his high position. Nathan smiles grimly. 15 years ago, he'd have shot the boy without warning. But wearing a badge changes a man, teaches him that justice doesn't always need a bullet to be served. Getting awful lonely up there, son, Nathan calls softly. Jack's startled curse brings a hint of satisfaction. Might want to consider your position carefully. Tom's got you up high for a reason, makes you an easy target while he stays safe in the shadows. Shut your mouth, old man. Jack's voice carries a tremor despite its bravado. You're supposed to be running. Running's a young man's game. I prefer patience these days. Nathan keeps his voice conversational, grandfather-like. Your brother, Tom. Now he understands patience. Waited 2 years after that failed hanging before starting his killing spree. 12 dead lawmen across 4 territories. Always blamed them for not saving your pa's ranch. The silence above grows heavier. Nathan presses his advantage, voice carrying just enough to reach Jack's ears. But he never told you about the banker in Cheyenne, did he? The one who offered to help your ma keep the ranch? Tom killed him too. Couldn't stand the idea of owing anyone. You're lying. But uncertainty creeps into Jack's voice like mountain frost. Truth's in my saddlebags, boy. Letters from your ma to that banker, asking for help. Tom found them and, well... Nathan lets the silence fill in the rest. Ask yourself, how many times has Tom risked himself while putting you boys in harm's way? Above, Jack's breathing grows ragged. The truth can be a more devastating weapon than any bullet, especially when it confirms doubts long buried. Nathan learned that lesson tracking men across empty country. Sometimes, the worst wounds are the ones we carry inside. Back in the sheriff's office, Judge McCullough continues his tale to the gathered townspeople. Ghostwalker wasn't just a manhunter. He was a legend because he understood men's souls, knew their weaknesses, their breaking points, could track a killer across bare rock by following the trail of his guilt. But what does this have to do with Cooper? Hawthorne demands, impatience breaking through his fear. The judge's smile carries old secrets. Ever wonder why they called him Ghostwalker? Wasn't just because he could track men where others failed. It was because he'd appear like a spirit of vengeance, always when least expected. Men would think they'd lost him, let their guard down. Then he'd be there, as if he'd risen from their own shadows. Sarah's eyes widen as understanding dawns. The careful way Nathan taught her to read tracks, to understand human nature, his insistence on patience over quick draws, the way he could read a man's intentions from the smallest tells. Outside, a cold wind whips down from the mountains, carrying the promise of snow. In its voice, those who know how to listen might hear echoes of old stories, tales of a hunter who became law, of justice that moves like a ghost through the night. And somewhere in the darkness, Nathan Cooper stalks his prey, proving that some legends don't fade. They just learn to wear stars. Tom Carson crouches in the shadows between buildings, his breath frosting in the cold mountain air. Something's wrong. The old sheriff's disappearance feels too neat, too practiced, like a wolf playing wounded to draw out its prey. He's seen this dance before, back when bounty hunters still roamed these territories like modern-day giants. A memory surfaces, unwanted as winter frost. 8 years ago, in a Dakota saloon, he'd heard tales of Ghostwalker from a dying marshal. He doesn't just hunt men, the lawman had whispered through blood-stained teeth. He hunts their fears, their doubts, makes them destroy themselves before he ever draws his gun. Tom shakes off the chill that has nothing to do with the mountain night. "Will!" he hisses into the darkness. "Get over here!" His youngest brother materializes from the shadows, shotgun held close. "Find Jack. Something ain't right." "But you said to keep our positions," Will protests, youth making him literal-minded. "Said the plan would work perfect if we just—" "Plans change, boy." Tom fights to keep his voice low. That weren't no ordinary fear in the old man's voice, that was bait, pure and simple. Now move. As Will disappears into the darkness, Tom draws his knife, an ugly thing with a blade blackened by smoke and blood. Ghostwalker or no, steel between the ribs kills all men the same. Meanwhile, in the sheriff's office, Judge McCullough's story has drawn an unexpected visitor. Mary Blackwood stands in the doorway, her silver hair and fine clothes marking her as one of the town's leading citizens. But there's steel in her spine that has nothing to do with social standing. "You're talking about Nathan Cooper," she says, her voice carrying the weight of old knowledge. "About who he was before Silver Gap." Her eyes meet the judge's, sharing something unspoken. "About what he did to my brother's gang." The room falls silent. Even Hawthorne stops his nervous pacing. Sarah Chen's hand drops instinctively to her gun, but the judge waves her down. "Your brother made his choice, Mary," McCullough says gently. "Mad Dog Mason chose his path when he started burning banks with people still inside." Mary Blackwood moves into the lamplight, each step measured like she's approaching a witness stand. "I know what my brother was, Judge. Known it since he killed his first man at 16. She pulls a letter from her sleeve, paper yellowed with age. "What you don't know is that Nathan Cooper wrote to me before he went after the Blackwood gang. Told me exactly why he had to stop them and asked my forgiveness for what he'd have to do." She unfolds the letter with trembling hands. "Said he'd try to take my brother alive if he could. Said sometimes a man has to choose between justice and mercy, and hoped I'd understand when he made that choice." Her voice catches. Even then, wearing a bounty hunter's star instead of a sheriff's badge, he cared about the families left behind. Outside, Nathan Cooper moves through his town like a ghost of memory. Jack Carson's silence from the rooftop speaks volumes. Seeds of doubt planted earlier beginning to bloom. The boy's always been the weak link in Tom's chain, more follower than killer. Now to see if those seeds bear fruit. "Made your decision yet, Jack?" Nathan's voice carries just far enough. "About why Tom really keeps you up high while he skulks in the shadows." "Shut up." But Jack's voice breaks like spring ice. "You're just trying to turn us against each other." "Turn you against each other?" Nathan allows a trace of amusement to color his words. "Boy, I got papers in my office that'll prove every word. Telegraph from your ma's banker, documenting Tom's threats. Report about the fire that killed him 3 days later. Even the letter your ma wrote, begging Tom to stop his killing before it destroyed what was left of your family." The roof creaks as Jack shifts position. "What letter?" "What banker?" "Herbert Mitchell, First Bank of Cheyenne." Offered to restructure your pa's loans after the fever took him. Would have saved the ranch, kept your ma comfortable. But Tom couldn't stand owing anyone, could he? Couldn't bear the thought of help, even for family. In the shadows below, Tom Carson's blood runs cold. The banker's name strikes him like a physical blow. No one knew about Mitchell, about the fire. He'd made sure of it, covered his tracks like winter snow covering a grave. Unless... The realization hits him like a hangman's drop. Only one man could know those details. One man who'd been hunting him longer than he'd known, gathering evidence like a spider spinning its web, waiting for the perfect moment to spring the trap. Ghost Walker. The name whispers through his mind like a death sentence. Not just some aging lawman playing at authority, but the legend himself. The hunter who'd tracked the Blackwood gang through hell itself, who'd brought down Mad Dog Mason when no one else dared try. And Tom had walked right into his town, walked right in. In the sheriff's office, Mary Blackwood continues her tale. Nathan Cooper didn't just bring justice to these territories. He brought understanding, knew that every outlaw's story had roots in something deeper, loss, betrayal, desperation. Didn't make their crimes right, but it meant something that he saw them as men, not just targets. She smooths the old letter with careful fingers. When he came to Silver Gap 15 years ago, asked to pin on a badge, I supported him. Knew what it cost him to bring down my brother's gang. Knew he carried that weight and others like it. Man like that, who understands the price of justice, that's who you want watching over a town. Sarah Chen listens, pieces falling into place like spent cartridges after a firefight. The careful way Nathan taught her to read people, not just tracks. His insistence that every criminal had a story, that understanding those stories made you a better deputy. The sadness that sometimes crossed his face when he had to lock someone up. A sudden commotion outside draws everyone's attention. Will Carson bursts into the office, shotgun shaking in his hands. But instead of threats, tears stream down his young face. Help, he gasps. Please, I need to surrender. The silence in the sheriff's office stretches tight as a hangman's rope. Will Carson stands trembling, his young face streaked with tears and trail dust. The shotgun slips from nerveless fingers, clattering to the wooden floor like distant thunder. Sarah Chen moves quickly, kicking the weapon aside while keeping her revolver trained on the young outlaw. Tom's gone crazy. Will's words tumble out like water through a broken dam. Said the sheriff ain't just some old man. Said he's Ghost Walker himself. He's gonna burn the whole town down if that's what it takes to draw him out. Said a legend dies tonight one way or another. Judge McCullough rises slowly, age forgotten in urgency. Where's your brother now, son? Don't. Mary Blackwood's voice cracks like a whip. It's a trick. Has to be. The Carson gang never surrenders. Her hand disappears into the folds of her dress, emerging with a derringer. This is just what Tom wants. Get us all focused on the youngest while he makes his real move. Will drops to his knees, hands raised. Please. Tom killed the banker. Killed lots of folks. Made me and Jack help cover his tracks. I can't do it anymore. His eyes find Sarah's, pleading. Sheriff Cooper was right. About everything. About Tom using us. About what really happened to the ranch. Please, I just want it to stop. Outside, the wind carries the scent of smoke. Somewhere in the darkness, a horse screams in pain and fear. Orange flames begin to dance in the windows of the livery stable, casting demon shadows on the surrounding buildings. Fire. The cry goes up from the street, followed by the thunder of running feet as townspeople rush to fight the growing blaze. The livery stable houses not just horses but hay and grain, enough fuel to set half the town ablaze if the flames aren't contained. Sarah moves to the door, but Judge McCullough's voice stops her. That's what he wants, Deputy. Draw everyone out into the open. Make us choose between saving the town and keeping order. He turns to Will, eyes hard as mountain flint. Where's Jack? The young outlaw shakes his head, genuine fear crossing his features. Don't know. Tom sent me to find him. But he wasn't on the roof no more. Not after whatever the sheriff said to him. In the growing chaos outside, Nathan Cooper watches the flames climb higher, painting the night in shades of hell. Tom Carson's playing his last card, destruction as distraction. But the fire reveals more than it hides, casting light into shadows where killers try to hide. Movement catches his eye. Jack Carson slipping between buildings, heading not toward the fire, but away from it. Running. The middle brother's nerve has finally broken, just as Nathan planned. But Tom won't let him go, not with what Jack knows. Which means Nathan turns, peacemaker clearing leather with the smooth speed of long practice. Tom Carson stands 10 feet away, that blackened knife in his hand catching orange firelight. "Figured it out, did you?" Tom's voice carries the rasp of wood smoke and madness. "Moment Jack started running, knew you'd watch for me to follow, always one step ahead, ain't you, Ghost Walker?" "Been ahead of you for years, Tom." Nathan keeps his voice calm, reasonable. "Since that banker in Cheyenne. Left a trail even a blind man could follow once he knew where to look. Killing lawmen just to draw attention, hoping I'd come out of retirement." He allows himself a small smile. "Worked, didn't it?" Tom's laugh holds no humor, just the sharp edge of broken dreams. 15 years I heard the stories, Ghost Walker, the legend. Man who could track anybody, anywhere. Who brought down Mad Dog Mason and the Blackwood Gang. Who just disappeared one day like morning mist. He spins the knife with practiced ease. Never thought I'd find you playing sheriff in some two-bit silver town. Not playing, Tom. Being. Trying to prevent men like you from making more orphans, more widows. More lost souls thinking violence is the only answer. Nathan's gun doesn't waver. "Like your brothers." "My brothers?" Tom's voice rises, crack of instability showing through. "I protected them, taught them to be strong, to take what they needed. World's cruel, old man. Only the hard survive." "That what you told yourself when you killed Mitchell? When you burned him alive in his own house? Man was trying to help your family, Tom. Could have saved the ranch, saved your ma's heart from breaking." Nathan's words cut deeper than any blade. "Instead, you chose pride over family, violence over mercy, been choosing it ever since." Behind them, the livery stable's roof collapses in a shower of sparks and burning timber. The light catches Tom's face, revealing the madness that's been growing there for years, fed by guilt and twisted pride. "Enough talk." Tom hurls the knife with snake-like speed, following it in a rush meant to carry him inside Nathan's gun range. It's a killer's move, one that's worked a dozen times before. But Nathan Cooper isn't just a small-town sheriff. Ghost Walker's reflexes, honed by 15 years of hunting the worst the territories could breed, haven't faded. His first shot knocks the knife aside in a shower of sparks. His second catches Tom's shoulder, spinning him like a drunk at a dance. Tom rolls with the impact, drawing his gun as he comes up. 2 shots crack out almost as one. Nathan feels the wind of Tom's bullet pass his cheek. His own shot hits true, sending the outlaw's gun flying from suddenly nerveless fingers. "It's over, Tom." Nathan's voice carries clear despite the roar of the fire, the shouts of townspeople fighting the blaze. "Been over since you first set foot in my town." Tom Carson looks down at his bleeding hand, then up at the man who was legend before he was law. Something breaks in his face, some last grip on sanity finally giving way. "Nothing's over," he screams and reaches for his boot knife. "Ghost Walker dies, Tony." The last word never comes. Nathan's final shot speaks instead, with the finality of mountain justice. Tom Carson, last of the true territory killers, falls face first into the dirt of Silver Gap's main street. Above him, Nathan Cooper stands straight despite his years, his gun still smoking in the firelight. Ghost Walker's last hunt is finally over. Dawn breaks over Silver Gap, painting the mountain peaks gold while the valley still lies wrapped in shadow. Smoke rises from the ruins of the livery stable, but the fire's been contained. The town's quick response prevented the catastrophe Tom Carson had planned. Nathan Cooper stands on the sheriff's office porch, watching the sun climb over his town. The peacemaker at his hip carries one more notch, though no one will ever see it. Inside, Jack Carson sits in a cell, staring at nothing. They'd found him trying to steal a horse from the Peterson ranch, more scared boy than hardened outlaw. Will occupies the adjacent cell, but his face shows relief more than fear. The weight of years spent under Tom's influence finally lifting from young shoulders. Sarah Chen approaches her mentor, 2 cups of coffee in hand. She moves differently now, with the confidence of someone who's seen legend become real and understood its price. "Town's talking," she says, offering him a cup. "About who you were, who you are." A pause, careful but determined. "About Ghostwalker." Nathan accepts the coffee, his weathered face revealing nothing. "Ghostwalker died 15 years ago, Sarah. In a box canyon with the Blackwood gang. Man who walked out of there wanted something different. Something more than just hunting men." "But you kept hunting, didn't you?" She gestures toward the cells. "Just differently. Carson gang wasn't the first outfit you've broken from the inside out since becoming sheriff." A small smile crosses Nathan's face. "Judge told you about the others?" "Jenkins gang last spring. Hawkins brothers the year before. Every time you knew exactly how to split them apart. Make them doubt each other." She meets his eyes. "That's why you insisted on working alone. Wasn't just about protecting me. You were playing a longer game." Before Nathan can respond, Mary Blackwood approaches, her silver hair catching the morning light. She carries a wooden box, aged but well preserved. "Found this in my attic," she says, placing it on the porch railing. "Been keeping it safe 15 years now. Thought maybe it was time it came home." She opens the lid, revealing a brass star, a territorial marshal's badge, tarnished by time but still carrying authority. Nathan stares at it, memories flooding back. "Day I brought in your brother's gang. Turned this in, said I was done with hunting. And Marshal Reynolds let you walk away," Mary nods. "Said sometimes a man needs to find a different way to serve justice. But he also said to keep this safe in case the territories ever needed Ghostwalker again." Judge McCullough joins them, moving stiffly in the morning chill. "Territories changing, Nathan. Railroads pushing through, bringing new kinds of trouble. Maybe it's time the legend came back, not as a hunter, but as something more." Nathan lifts the badge, its weight familiar as sin in his hand. "Been 15 years since I wore this star. Chose a different path." "Did you?" Sarah asks softly. "Or did you just find a better way to walk the same road? Every lesson you taught me about tracking, about reading people, that wasn't just sheriff's work. That was Ghostwalker's wisdom, wasn't it?" Inside the cells, Will Carson speaks up, his young voice carrying clearly. "He gave us a choice. Even after everything Tom did, all the people he killed, Sheriff Cooper still gave us a chance to choose different. He grips the bars, earnestness in every word. That's something the stories about Ghostwalker never mentioned, that sometimes the hardest thing isn't bringing men to justice, it's showing them there's another way." Nathan turns the badge over in his hands, watching sunlight play across its surface. "Ghostwalker hunted alone, lived by his own rules. Town sheriff's got responsibilities, people depending on him. Maybe that's exactly why the territory needs you now," Judge McCullough says. "Not just as a hunter, but as a teacher. Show other lawmen there's more to justice than just gunsmoke and wanted posters." He nods toward Sarah. "You've already started whether you meant to or not." Mary Blackwood touches Nathan's arm gently. "My brother chose his path, Nathan. But what you did here in Silver Gap, giving men like young Will a chance at redemption, teaching Sarah to understand justice beyond the badge, that's a different kind of legacy. A better one." Nathan looks out over his town, remembering. 15 years of small victories, of preventing violence before it started, of teaching others to read the signs he'd learned tracking men across empty country. The badge in his hands seems to pulse with possibility. "Marshal Reynolds still running the territory?" he asks finally. "Still is," the judge confirms. "Said if you ever wanted back in, there'd be a place. Territory could use a marshal who understands both justice and mercy. Sarah straightens, decision clear in her stance. Town still needs a sheriff. Nathan turns to her, seeing not just his deputy, but the future of law in these changing lands. Reckon you've learned enough these past months to pin on a star of your own? Her smile carries the dawn's brightness. Learned from the best, both the sheriff and the ghost. Inside the cells, Jack Carson finally speaks, his voice rough with unshed tears. What happens to us now? Nathan studies the young outlaws, seeing not their crimes but their potential. That depends on you. Territory needs more than just lawmen. Needs people who've seen both sides, who understand the price of choosing wrong and the value of choosing right. He meets their eyes steadily. Judge McCullough's got some ideas about that. About second chances if you're willing to earn them. The morning sun climbs higher, burning away the last shadows in Silver Gap's streets. Nathan Cooper pins the marshal's badge to his vest, its weight settling like a familiar burden. But this time it's different. This time, Ghostwalker's legend will serve a greater purpose than just hunting men. Sarah Chen stands beside him, already carrying herself like the sheriff she'll become. In the cells, two young men begin their journey toward redemption. And in the territory beyond, word begins to spread. Ghostwalker rides again, not just as law's sword, but as justice's teacher. Some legends don't die. They just find better ways to serve. 2 weeks after Tom Carson's death, the territorial marshal's badge rides easy on Nathan Cooper's vest as he guides his horse along the mountain trail back to Silver Gap. His first assignment, investigating reports of Chinese laborers vanishing from railroad camps, brought him full circle to his old stomping grounds. But Silver Gap isn't quite the same town he left Sarah Chen to protect. The evening sun casts long shadows across Main Street as he rides in, townsfolk nodding respectfully as they recognize both the man and the legend he carries. Outside the sheriff's office, Sarah's deputy's horse stands ready, its rider checking saddle straps with practiced care. "Trouble?" Nathan asks, dismounting smoothly despite trail-weary muscles. Deputy Michael Running Bear, a young Ute who Sarah deputized her first week as sheriff, straightens up. "Missing person. Old Joe Chen from the Mercantile hasn't come back from his supply run to Eagles Pass. Should have been here yesterday." He checks his ammunition belt, a habit Nathan recognizes from Sarah's training. Sheriff Chen's inside with his wife now. Inside the office, Sarah looks up from her desk, his old desk, where Ming Chen sits wringing her hands. The new sheriff's star catches lamplight as Sarah rises, and Nathan notes with approval how she's rearranged the office. Gun rack closer to the door, wanted posters organized by territory instead of bounty. "Marshal." Sarah's greeting carries both respect and familiarity. "Didn't expect you back so soon." Territory's smaller when you know how to read it. Nathan settles his trail-worn frame into a chair, tipping his hat respectfully to Mrs. Chen. "Tell me about Joe." Ming Chen speaks up, her English careful but clear. "My husband always careful with time. Never late. Take same route, same stops. Eagles Pass on Tuesday, back Wednesday latest." She twists her handkerchief in worried fingers. "Today, Friday. No word." Sarah spreads a map across her desk, another of Nathan's lessons about visualizing territory. Joe's regular route takes him through Thunder Canyon, same place 3 railroad workers disappeared last month. She meets Nathan's eyes meaningfully. "Same case that brought you back this way." Nathan studies the map, memories of old trails and hidden paths overlaying the printed lines. Railroads pushing hard through that canyon. Lot of Chinese labor, lot of money changing hands. He traces a finger along the marked route. Lot of opportunity for men who don't mind bloody profits. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Sarah's voice carries the edge of a hunter catching scent. "Slavers?" Nathan spits the word like poison. "Territory's changing. Railroad brings progress, but it brings darker things too. Men who see Chinese workers as merchandise, not people. He glances at Ming Chen, whose face has gone pale with understanding. Been hearing whispers about missing men from other camps. Never enough proof to act until now. Joe Chen's not just another railroad worker, Sarah says firmly. He's one of ours. Silver Gap protects its own. Nathan nods, pride warming his chest at his former deputy's words. Might be why they grabbed him. Local merchant knows supply routes, cargo values, kind of information that'd be valuable to men running a slaving operation. A commotion outside draws their attention. Michael Running Bear rushes in, excitement breaking through his usual stoic demeanor. Sheriff, Marshal, riders coming in from the north. Will Carson's with them. Nathan's eyebrows rise. He'd sent the younger Carson brother to Judge McCullough's ranch, part of the boy's chance at redemption. Will's presence here means something's stirred up the territory's dust. The young man who enters bears little resemblance to the frightened outlaw of 2 weeks past. Hard work and clean living have begun to reshape him, though his eyes still carry shadows of Tom's influence. Marshal Cooper. Will nods respectfully, then turns to Sarah. Sheriff Chen, think I found something you need to know about. Was riding fence up near Thunder Canyon, saw some men moving at night. Chinese workers chained together. His voice hardens. Recognized one of the guards. Used to ride with Tom sometimes. Man called himself Butcher Bill Williams. Nathan's jaw tightens. Butcher Bill earned his nickname separating families at slave auctions down south before the war. Man who'd bring his particular skills to the railroad camps would have no qualms about running a slaving operation. Sarah's already moving, checking her gun with practiced efficiency. How many men? Counted 6 guards, maybe 15 prisoners, Will reports. They're holding them in the old Sullivan mine. Saw them move another group in just yesterday. He pauses significantly. One looked like Mr. Chen. Ming Chen's sharp intake of breath cuts through the room like a knife. Sarah rests a gentle hand on her shoulder before turning to Nathan. Marshal? This is your territory now. Nathan studies the faces before him. Sarah Chen, the student who's become a teacher in her own right. Will Carson, seeking redemption one good deed at a time. Michael Running Bear, representing the changing face of frontier law. Each of them part of the legacy Ghostwalker never expected to build. Territory's changing, he says finally, checking his own weapon with the smooth precision of long practice. But some things stay the same. Law still needs teeth in the wild places. He looks at Sarah. Your town, your lead. But Ghostwalker might have a few tricks to teach about hunting in the dark. Outside, the sun settles behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. Word spreads through Silver Gap. Ghostwalker rides again, but not alone. This time, justice comes with many faces, many hands, many ways of setting right what's wrong. The legend grows, transforms, becomes something new. And somewhere in the gathering dark, evil men are about to learn that some legends bite harder the second time around. Thunder Canyon lives up to its name as storm clouds gather above, moonlight fighting through breaks in the cover to paint the landscape in shifting shadows. Nathan Cooper leads his horse along a narrow trail, every sense alert for signs of movement. Behind him, Sarah Chen and Will Carson follow with the quiet precision he taught them, while Michael Running Bear scouts ahead, his Ute tracking skills proving invaluable in the treacherous terrain. Place hasn't changed, Nathan mutters, memories surfacing like old wounds. Tracked the Blackwood gang through here years back. Canyon's got more hiding places than a snake's got scales. Sarah studies the cliff walls, reading the land as Nathan taught her. Railroad camps 3 miles south. Lot of Chinese workers disappeared between here and there. She glances at Will. Your friend Butcher Bill always had a thing for ambush spots. Wasn't my friend. Will's voice carries an edge of shame and determination. But yeah, Tom said Bill liked places where folks couldn't run, said it made the merchandise easier to handle. His face twists at the memory. Never knew he meant people. Michael Running Bear materializes from the shadows like his namesake, moving with the silence of his ancestors. Found sign ahead. 6 horses, heavy with extra riders, led off the main trail toward the old mine workings. His dark eyes meet Nathan's. Fresh blood on some rocks. Someone fought back. Nathan dismounts, checking his peacemaker with practiced care. Joe Chen's a proud man. Wouldn't go easy into chains. He turns to Sarah. Your town, your call. How do you want to play this? Sarah's response is interrupted by the crack of a rifle. Michael drops flat as splinters fly from the rock beside his head. More shots follow, echoing off canyon walls, until it sounds like an army's firing. Ambush! Will's warning comes too late, as bullets rain down from hidden positions above. Nathan rolls behind a boulder, drawing his gun in the same motion that once earned him legend status. Sarah and Michael find their own cover while Will scrambles up the canyon wall, using skills learned from less lawful days. 4 shooters high left, Nathan calls out, his voice carrying clear despite the gunfire. 2 more on the right ridge. Been watching us since we entered the canyon. He fires twice, and a scream from above confirms Ghostwalker hasn't lost his touch. Sarah's voice carries the calm he taught her in crisis. Michael, work your way up the left side. Will, keep going high right. Marshall and I'll hold their attention here. She punctuates her words with carefully placed shots, making the ambushers keep their heads down. Been a while since anyone dared ambush Ghostwalker, a voice calls from above, its Texas drawl carrying cruel amusement. Age making you slow, old man? Or just that tin star weighing you down? Nathan's laugh holds no humor. Butcher Bill Williams, still playing tough from high ground, I see. Some things never change. World's changing plenty, Ghostwalker. Railroads bringing civilization, but civilization needs order, structure, people knowing their place. Bill's voice drips with twisted philosophy. Just helping maintain nature's hierarchy is all. Providing labor where it's needed. Only place you're providing is a prison cell, Sarah shouts back, her gun adding punctuation as she catches one of Bill's men trying to shift position. The man falls, cursing as he clutches his shoulder. The fight settles into a deadly rhythm, shots exchanged like arguing voices in the canyon's depths. But Nathan's been in enough gunfights to know this one feels wrong. Butcher Bill's too smart to waste ammunition without purpose. Then he hears it, the faint sound of chains moving in the darkness, barely audible under the gunfire. Understanding hits him like a physical blow. Sarah, he calls out. This is a diversion. They're moving the prisoners while we're pinned down. Before she can respond, new voices join the chaos. Chinese shouts echo from deeper in the canyon, followed by the sharp crack of whips and cruel commands in English. The slavers are using the firefight as cover to relocate their captives, Will's voice carries down from his higher position. I see them, about 20 prisoners, Joe Chen's with them. They're heading for the North Trail. That trail dead ends at the cliff face, Michael adds, native knowledge of the land clear in his voice. Unless, he pauses, realization dawning. The old mine shaft connects through to Rattlesnake Valley. Perfect escape route. Nathan's mind races, years of hunting experience combining with new knowledge. Sarah, you and Michael keep these boys busy. Will, work your way north but don't engage. I'm going to circle around through the wash. Cut them off before they reach the mine entrance. Like hell you're going alone, Sarah's response carries the steel he helped forge. This is my town's people they're holding. Not alone. Nathan allows himself a grim smile. Ghostwalker hunted alone. Marshall Cooper's got backup. He glances at Will. Think you can make those shots from high ground count, boy? Like your brother taught you, but this time for the right reasons? Will chambers a round in his rifle, determination replacing uncertainty. Tom taught me how to kill. You taught me when it's right to do it. Reckon saving innocent folks qualifies. The plan comes together with the speed of practiced law at work. Sarah and Michael maintain the firefight, their shots carefully placed to suggest more defenders than actually present. Will works his way higher, finding positions that command the approaches to the mine. And Nathan Cooper, legend made law, slips into the shadows he once called home. Butcher Bill's voice carries after him, ugly with confidence. Running away? Ghost Walker? Ain't like the stories I heard. They said you never backed down from a fight. Nathan doesn't respond. Ghost Walker taught him that sometimes silence speaks louder than bullets. And in the darkness of Thunder Canyon, as storm clouds finally unleash their fury, a legend moves like deadly purpose through the rain. Some men learn too late that the most dangerous predator is the one you don't see coming. Butcher Bill's about to learn that lesson written in lead and justice. The old mine shaft looms ahead, its entrance a black wound in the canyon wall. Inside, chains rattle and men suffer. But not for much longer. Ghost Walker's legend was built one hunt at a time. Tonight, it grows again. Not through death, but through salvation. The old mine shaft swallows sound like a hungry beast, its timber-lined throat stretching deep into the mountain's heart. Nathan Cooper moves through the darkness with the sure-footed confidence of a man who's hunted in darker places. Water drips somewhere in the depths, a steady rhythm like a hangman's drum. Behind him, the gunfight at the canyon mouth continues, Sarah and Michael's careful shooting creating the illusion of a larger force. But ahead, growing clearer with each step, comes the sound that drives him forward, the rattle of chains, the shuffle of unwilling feet, the sharp crack of whips accompanied by cruel commands in English and broken responses in Chinese. The tunnel opens into a larger chamber, ancient mining equipment casting strange shadows in the sporadic light of the slavers' lanterns. Nathan presses himself against the rough wall, watching as Butcher Bill's men drive their prisoners toward a connecting tunnel. Joe Chen stumbles at the rear of the group, his normally pristine merchant's clothes torn and bloody, but his head remains unbowed. Move faster, you yellow devils. A slaver raises his whip, but Joe turns to face him with defiant dignity. My name is Joseph Chen. His accented voice carries clear in the chamber. I am American citizen. You have no right. The whip cracks, but this time it meets Ghost Walker's steel instead of human flesh. Nathan steps from the shadows, the slaver's weapon wrapped around his gun barrel. A sharp yank disarms the man before Nathan's left hook sends him sprawling. He's right about that. Nathan's voice carries the cold authority that once made outlaws tremble. About being an American citizen, about having rights. His eyes scan the chamber, counting opponents. About you having no right. 4 slavers reach for weapons, but Nathan's already moving. The peacemaker speaks twice, dropping 2 men before they can clear leather. A third manages to fire, his bullet churning rock dust from the wall as Nathan rolls behind a rusted ore cart. Ghost Walker. The call comes from deeper in the chamber, where Butcher Bill holds a knife to Joe Chen's throat. Should have known you'd find the back door. Always were too clever for your own good. While you were never clever enough, Bill. Nathan keeps his voice conversational, though his gun remains ready. Running slaves in railroad territory? Mighty risky business these days. Civilization's coming, like you said, but it ain't the kind that tolerates men like you anymore. It's men like you. Through the connecting tunnel comes the sound of rifles being worked. More of Bill's men trying to flank him. But Nathan Cooper didn't become a legend by being predictable. He'd spent the ride here teaching Will Carson everything he knew about Thunder Canyon's honeycomb of mine shafts. A shot rings out from somewhere above, the sound echoing off stone walls. One of Bill's flanking men screams, the sound cut short by a second shot. Will Carson, doing his part from hidden positions in the upper tunnels. Brought your own backup, I see. Bill's voice carries a trace of uncertainty now. But you ain't the only one with surprises. New voices join the chaos, the remaining ambushers from the canyon mouth, driven inside by Sarah and Michael's relentless pressure. They take positions around the chamber's edges, guns trained on both Nathan and their own captives. Might have numbers on your side, Nathan acknowledges, but numbers ain't everything. Ask the Blackwood gang about that, ask Tom Carson. He shifts position slightly, keeping cover while studying the chamber's layout. How many of your men you willing to lose tonight, Bill? How many before the profit ain't worth the cost? A prisoner takes advantage of the distraction to make a break for freedom. A slaver raises his rifle, but Nathan's shot takes him before he can fire. The chamber erupts in chaos as more prisoners realize their chance, breaking free despite chains that bind them together. "Kill them all!" Bill roars, pushing Joe Chen aside to draw his own gun. "Dead slaves tell no tales." But Ghostwalker's legend wasn't built on speed alone. Nathan's carefully positioned himself near a supporting beam, one of many holding the chamber's ceiling in place. His next shot doesn't target any man, but rather the rotting wood itself. The crack of the beam is louder than any gunshot. Rock dust rains down as the chamber's ceiling shifts ominously. The slaver's attention wavers, survival instinct warring with greed. "That's the thing about old mines," Nathan's voice carries clear, despite the growing rumble from above. "Timber rots, rock shifts, one wrong move, Mo." He puts another bullet into a second beam. Well, civilization might be coming, but nature still has the final say. More shots ring out from above. Will Carson making his contribution count. 2 more slavers fall, while others break for the exits. The chamber's supports groan like tortured souls. "You'll bring the whole mountain down." Bill's shout carries real fear now. "Kill us all." "Maybe." Nathan stands, peacemaker unwavering. But Ghostwalker's legend started in a box canyon, dealing justice to men who thought they were beyond its reach. Seems fitting it might end in another kind of box. His smile carries no warmth. "Your choice, Bill. Surrender and face the law, or test your luck against the mountain." Joe Chen, forgotten in the chaos, sweeps his chains into the legs of the slaver nearest him. The man goes down hard as other prisoners follow suit, years of oppression finding voice in desperate courage. Sarah and Michael appear in the main tunnel, adding their guns to the fight. Butcher Bill looks around wildly, seeing his operation crumbling like the chamber's ceiling. His face twists with the same ugly hatred that drove him from southern slave markets to western territories. Rather die than surrender to a legend past his time. He raises his gun, not at Nathan but at the nearest support beam. Let's see if Ghostwalker can outrun a mountain. The shot rings out, but it doesn't come from Bill's gun. Nathan's bullet takes him clean through the shoulder, spinning him away from the beam. The slaver's shot goes wild, sparking off stone as he falls. Ghostwalker hunted alone, Nathan says quietly, keeping his gun trained on the fallen man. Marshall Cooper believes in backup. As if to punctuate his words, more figures appear in the chamber's entrances. Townsfolk from Silver Gap, led by Ming Chen herself, carrying torches and determination. They'd followed Sarah's lead, refusing to wait while their neighbors suffered. The remaining slavers, seeing their odds vanish like morning mist, throw down their weapons. Will Carson descends from the upper tunnels, rifle still smoking, to help free the prisoners. Sarah and Michael begin securing prisoners, while Nathan Cooper stands watch, legend and law combined in service of justice. Outside, dawn breaks over Thunder Canyon, painting the sky in colors of hope and change. But in the depths of the old mine, Ghostwalker's legend grows again, not through death this time, but through the kind of justice that builds rather than destroys. Some stories, it seems, never really end. They just find new ways to be told. A week after the Thunder Canyon rescue, Silver Gap bustles with new energy. The courthouse square fills with townsfolk gathering for a special ceremony. Marshal Nathan Cooper stands on the courthouse steps, his badge catching morning light as he surveys the crowd. Beside him, Sarah Chen wears her sheriff's star with quiet pride, while Will Carson and Michael Running Bear flank the stairs in their new deputy uniforms. Joe Chen, still bearing fading bruises but standing tall, addresses the gathered crowd. Silver Gap has always been more than just a town, his voice carries clear across the square. It is a community where all people matter, where justice wears many faces. He turns to Nathan. Where legends don't just hunt evil, they teach others to stand against it. In the front row, Ming Chen dabs at her eyes with a handkerchief. Behind her sit the freed railroad workers and their families, their presence a testament to changes sweeping the territory. Judge McCullough stands at the podium, legal papers in hand. The territory is changing, the judge announces. Railroads bringing new people, new challenges, new kinds of trouble. But it's also bringing new kinds of justice. He holds up a document bearing the territorial governor's seal. Which is why I'm pleased to announce the establishment of Silver Gap as the territory's first training center for frontier law enforcement. A murmur runs through the crowd. Nathan steps forward, his weathered face revealing a hint of pride. Ghostwalker hunted alone, he begins, his voice carrying years of experience. But the territory needs more than just legends now. Needs men and women who understand both law and justice, who can read sign and read hearts, who know when to draw fast and when to offer second chances. He gestures to his former deputy, now Silver Gap's sheriff. Sarah Chen proved that background doesn't matter as much as dedication and understanding, that justice speaks in many languages, sees through many eyes. His hand falls to his gun belt, where the peacemaker rides easy. Each of you wearing a star now carries part of Ghostwalker's legacy, not just the legend, but the lesson. Will Carson shifts uncomfortably as attention turns his way. Some of us came to that legacy from the wrong side of the law, he admits. Learned the hard way that true strength isn't about fear or violence. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. From his cell in the town jail, Butcher Bill Williams watches through barred windows as his former empire crumbles. The railroad company, eager to avoid scandal, has promised full compensation to the families of missing workers. His remaining men have turned state's evidence, ensuring his own date with territorial justice. The old way is ending, Nathan continues, addressing both the crowd and the future. Time was, one man with a fast gun could make a difference. But the territory's growing up. Needs more than just hunters now. Needs teachers, healers, builders. He looks at Sarah, at Will, at Michael. Needs those who understand that true justice isn't about revenge, but about making things right. Judge McCullough steps forward again. Which is why, with the governor's blessing, we're establishing a new kind of law enforcement. One that combines Ghostwalker's tracking skills with Sheriff Chen's community approach. One that offers redemption like Will Carson found, and respect for all traditions like Michael Running Bear represents. Sarah takes her place at the podium. Starting next month, lawmen and women from across the territory will come to Silver Gap. They'll learn tracking from Marshal Cooper, community policing from our deputies, and most importantly, they'll learn that justice wears many faces but speaks with one voice. The crowd erupts in cheers as the judge unveils the new sign. Silver Gap Territorial Law Enforcement Academy. Nathan studies the faces before him. Sarah Chen, whose dedication proved that justice knows no boundaries. Will Carson, living proof that redemption comes through action, not just words. Michael Running Bear, bridging worlds with quiet strength. Each carrying a piece of Ghostwalker's legacy, but making it uniquely their own. Ming Chen approaches, leading a group of railroad workers' wives. They bow respectfully to Nathan before presenting him with a finely embroidered silk banner. On it, Chinese characters share space with English words. Justice speaks all languages. For the Academy, Ming explains, her eyes bright with pride. So all who come to learn will remember that law protects everyone, or it protects no one. As the celebration continues, Nathan slips away to the sheriff's office. Sarah's office now. The wanted posters on the wall tell an old story. Ghostwalker's greatest hunts, preserved as teaching tools for future lawmen. But beside them hang new additions. Sarah's commendation for community service. Will's pardon signed by the governor. Michael's bridge-building work with local tribes. The sun sets behind Thunder Canyon, painting the sky in colors of change and promise. In his marshal's office, Nathan Cooper begins writing in a fresh journal. Not case notes this time, but lessons. Things learned hunting men across empty country, things about justice and mercy, about reading sign and reading souls, about when to draw fast and when to holster pride. Ghostwalker's legend grew from a hunter's skill with gun and track, but Marshall Cooper's legacy will live on through those he teaches, those who learn that true justice isn't about being the fastest gun or the deadliest hunter. It's about understanding that every person's story matters, that redemption is always possible, that sometimes the hardest battles are won without firing a shot. The old mine in Thunder Canyon stands sealed now, a reminder that some darkness should stay buried. But in Silver Gap, new light shines as future lawmen and women learn to combine the best of the old ways with the promise of the new. They carry badges and guns, but more importantly, they carry understanding. Some legends die with the times that created them, but others evolve, teaching new generations that true strength comes not from making others fear, but from giving them reason to hope. In Silver Gap, Ghostwalker's legend didn't end. It grew into something larger, something lasting. Justice, it seems, has many faces. But in the end, they all speak with one voice, calling people to be better than they thought they could be. And in that voice, echoing through Silver Gap streets and out across the changing territory, Ghostwalker's legacy lives on. Not as a lone hunter anymore, but as a light showing others the way.